Good morning. I first wish to thank you for your hospitality during the 2 days that my wife and I were here, and we feel very much at home in this conference. Feeling very much at home in Bochum, which is for us not self-evident in any way. And I think that this is something that we feel in the air. It is a testimony probably to what you do and what you know how to do, which is making people feel at home. Because this is all what it's all about. And making people feel at home, it is your business. As mentioned before, these 2 days we've been in 2 places at the same time, which is another characteristic of immigration and being a refugee, though I'm not one, okay? But at times you can feel when you are in a different situation, a different setting, you may feel out of home, and sometimes you feel out of home at home. So this is a very fluid sensation. And during the past 2 days, we've been in a kind of mini experience of trauma as our family is under missile attack in Tel Aviv, and we are here, but we are not here. And so being in several places at the same time is what we do also in therapy, that we are in our own place, our positioning as therapists, and at the same time we are in the life of another person. So all of these are good experiences to process and to ponder. What are we, who are we, and what are we doing here at all? So during these 2 days, we were conversing with other professionals and getting help from other professionals for their sympathy and empathy with us. And I was thinking about 2 issues that sometimes are lost in the big schema of things. One is internal immigration, when people are forced to move from one place to another due to economical reasons, due to ethnic reasons or political reasons, within the same country. You can be a refugee within the same country. In the Middle East, it's very common, and sometimes it's taken too lightly when people leave their homes, even for a few days, and go back. And sometimes they leave their home, they think they will be back in a few days, and they are out of home for eternity. So they find themselves in a third country, might be Germany, for better or for worse, and who knows what will be the next home. So something in the basic feeling of being anchored and rooted at home, feeling at home in your country, feeling at home in your community, feeling at home in your profession, feeling at home in your family. These are not self-evident, any of them, but of course, feeling at home in your family is the most basic, attachment-based feeling that we have or don't have. And that will make all the difference in terms of fragility and resilience. So one is really internal migration and being a refugee sometimes at home. Okay, but most evidently out of home, away from home geographically in a different place. Another thing that we experience in these 2 days is a breakdown of a family, a breakdown of a nuclear family, as we left our kids and our grandson in Tel Aviv, and they moved into our apartment where we've been there before because we have a security room, and there are at least 2 people here in this audience that were in this security room as our guests. So sometimes security place is to have people at home and you feel that you can have them as guests. Sometimes the security place is to find refuge. In your own home, one room is very dangerous, exposed, another room relatively safe. So we had to have our kids move into our apartment while we are here. Now this is very confusing. Even for people that are well experienced with war, the next war is always something new. And you have to remobilize your energies and your wits to struggle with the new realities. So thank you for your help, even vicariously, as we are vicariously traumatized sometimes, we are also vicariously strengthened. And for that I'm obliged, and I thank you for that. So I'll go directly to something that is very sensitive, because it was mentioned here that there is a gap in power, politics of power within our profession. In one day I can be a supervisor, which I like better what I learned from you is intervisor. At another time I'm a therapist, another time of the day, of the same day, I'm supervised, intervised, another time I'm a student, and another time I'm a teacher. So all these different positioning happening in the same day are very good in order to make your identity flexible. I think this is a good exercising, like we do in the morning, some exercising. For the body is good exercising for identity. And we are dealing with identity, politics of identity at home, as civilians, as people of mankind, and in our profession, when I'm supervisee and intervisee and intervisor and patient or client, or maybe victim client, and therapist of other victims. These are all changing, like going round and round. Sometimes you get dizzy from this movement, but I think on the whole, this is what I call from bench to trench, and back to bench, and back to trench. And I think this movement is making you smarter, more experienced, and humble. And this is all we need to do our work. So I want to touch upon something that I had in mind. It's a little bit crazy, but okay, I'll try it. I'm in a friendly environment, so I'll do that. Politics of identities, okay? I'm standing here, many different things. I'm now talking to you, so I'm in a positioning in this discourse of power, relative power. But I'm also Jewish, and I'm aware of the many traumas of my people, collective trauma that's going through my veins, through my bloodstream, okay? So I cannot not see it. So I'm in Germany, in a certain part of Germany, with history, and it's all hanging in the here. It's here. So when it was mentioned, I think in the video, that we do not raise power issues in therapy unless our patient does, I think we don't have to mention power issues in therapy because they are there. First of all, because I'm a therapist and client, I'm a therapist and a manager, or a therapist vis-a-vis my intervisor. All the time we are in different positioning, so there is power game. Now, for example, I'm a member of a group that was not mentioned, which is just an internet group for kind of a space for therapists to think. And we struggle with the issues of what happens if we have a Palestinian guy as an intervisor for a Jewish therapist who works with a Palestinian in Tel Aviv. It's just to say the sentence is confusing. And they have to live this. They have to experience and they have to function in this very weird situation. And you can play with these ideas in many different ways. A male therapist intervised by a female minority or past refugee intervisor about a refugee client. It's difficult to contain this, I know, but we live in this group, and you do also. So as being an Israeli here, being a Jewish person here, brings the victim part in me to bloom. Wherever I go on the train, I see the buildings, I feel the presence of trauma here, outside and inside. But at the same time, I'm Israeli. So being an Israeli is being a privileged person in a Jewish state. Very uncomfortable for me, but this is what I am. So at one point, a privileged, entitled person in my own country. The next time, I'm an ex-victim. And sometimes being a victim throws you to the other extreme to be an aggressor. And we miss all the shades that on the continuum that we can be in other positions. I think this is what happens collectively in Israel. I'm not the only one who thinks so, but that doesn't help much that I think so. And I'm just must make sure that I don't make those jumps from being a victim to becoming an aggressor. So just by saying an Israeli Jew, I already throw myself into this vortex of victimhood, violence, and back and forth before even starting to practice psychotherapy. I'll give you an example. I could be BDS'd here. I myself signed a BDS against the university in Israel that I was teaching in, and I was blacklisted for that. But I can be BDS by myself and saying, who am I as an Israeli to talk about victims now, this day, this very day. And I want you to think about it. What is your positioning as a white person, sometimes, male, sometimes, vis-a-vis the other, whoever he or she is, where they come from, Turkey, as we heard yesterday, or other places. So I went to give a lecture. I was invited by by MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières, Physicians Without Borders, in East Jerusalem, to give a lecture about my experiences as a prisoner of war, how I am working now according to Istanbul protocols with Palestinian and refugees victims. And I was invited by that organization to talk in East Jerusalem. This is very complicated. It's 15 minutes drive from where I was in Jerusalem, that looks exactly like here, hotels and everything, moving to a different planet. And there was sitting, not such a big group, but like 30, 40 people who were from all over the world, and also local Palestinian psychiatrists and psychologists, social workers. The air was saturated with tension. And I was telling my own story. This is the story I know how to tell because this is my story. And this was within a professional milieu where I was expecting to have a containing, empathic feel. So I gave my talk and I responded to questions, and then one young man stood up and said, I'm this and that. I'm a Palestinian psychiatrist, and I detest the idea, not what you said, the idea that you stand like here and talk to us about tortures and occupation while you are the one who's doing it. And I was thrown off the pedestal, and it took me a few seconds to get myself together because I still was a prisoner of war in my story, and I was a lecturer and a professional and an Israeli aggressor, but I was hosted by these people. So I looked at him and I said, look, I appreciate your pain. I appreciate the hard feeling that you were sitting 2 hours and listening to me. You couldn't really tolerate me and my story, but this is a professional domain. This is a professional planet where other rules apply. And you should serve as a professional at all times, not as a Palestinian or Israeli professional, as a human being professional. I think you failed here. And another thing, you can oppose occupation any way other than violent way that you choose. But once I was invited and hosted, I'm your guest here in this building, you cannot attack me. You are obliged, even by your own tradition, to take care of your guests. So if you have anything that you want to revolt against, it's against your managers in MSF. You should stand up and say, I do not agree to be in this lecture, and that is okay with me. So that was just to give you a sense of where we are. And of course, I can come here as a refugee very easily. All it takes is a few missiles, and we are there. So I can come here as a refugee, or my son can come, or my grandson can come here as an immigrant or refugee, and you will accept me with all these complexities, that if you look deep inside yourself, you'll find them there. So this was just a short preview on the topic. Because where we are and where we walk, either in Palestine, in Israel, in Germany, and we enter a place, the holy place where we do therapy, the air is soaked, saturated with pain. And we wonder in our heart, and it was asked here, justice, will there ever be justice, ever? And we wonder if pain will ever dissipate, will ever go away. They can be the sites of concentration camp, and they can be the sites of refugee camps. There is pain. There is pain in the families, in communities, and in different places. And we should accept these realities of injustice and perfection, but we also have at the same time to have enough courage and enough optimism to stand against it. How do we can correct traces of evil by using all kinds of things that are therapeutic and beyond therapy, and I will discuss this, even though we feel deep inside that sometimes the help is too little too late. And too little too late is also a criticism regarding our own authorities that prefer to get the monies, take the monies elsewhere. We can be on the edge of despair, but never shy away from trying. So we are doing therapy, and we are the lucky ones. We are really the lucky ones. We're in a fantastic land of psychotherapy. It's magic land in some ways. And is therapy is the answer. And I'm looking, okay, when I'm saying the air is saturated with pain, I'm talking about two ways of transfer of pain, of trauma. One way is horizontal through the ripple effect, that something happens here and it affects something over there. Okay, we have the ripple effect here. When somebody talks about their experiences, it vibrates and goes to us as well. So there is a horizontal ripple effect, and there is a vertical one, which is the trans cohort. I don't know what's transgenerational because it's not clear what generation today is. But when it moves from a grandfather to father to son to grandson, we're looking at a vertical way of transferring trauma, also transferring resilience. And this magical thing is amazing, and it's in the working, even if we are not aware of it. A little baby can comfort the mother because the mother is in mental pain. He doesn't know it, and the mother doesn't know it. Most times the psychologist who observes it doesn't know it, but it happens. So that happens all the time. Either we take account of it or not. So if we look at psychotherapy from the outside, how people in general look at it, so sometimes therapy is why not? What's bad about it? It's nice to have. There are no harms, no side effects, so why not do it all the time, everywhere, and as much as we can? But it's not really true. And sometimes psychotherapy, even if it's practiced ethically and professionally, can be harmful. We have to first tell ourselves, do no harm. Make sure that you do no harm. Sometimes we interfere in a family, in the life of a person in such a massive way, and we don't have enough resources or time to put things back in order that sometimes it can be harmful. So we have to think, sometimes inaction is better than action, sometimes. So we can choose psychotherapy because psychotherapy is nice to have, and when other people, something happens, they invite teams of psychologists. Now there were missiles in southern Israel, they sent psychologists to help the population. But who are those psychologists? What are they doing? Are they helping the individuals, or are they helping the government keep the situation as it is until the next time? So what resilience are we talking about? The resilience of the victim citizens, or are we talking about the government trying to put things back in order, but we don't like the order to start with? So it's confusing. We want to do our work vis-a-vis our clients. We do not want to serve a third party. May it be managers, may it be the government, not necessarily. Not necessarily. We want to serve our profession, we want to serve people. Okay. Okay, in order to be on the safe side, that we are at even keel, that we are not falling off boundaries, it's always so important to have colleagues, to have intervisors, and to have associations and groups. All the time, we are embedded in those organizations, with those relationships, in order to keep us anchored. Because we can act out, we can act in, we can do all kinds of things, strange things, out of character and out of our professional character, and we need other people to reflect back to us. This is when looking from the outside on therapy and saying, wow, therapy is a magic solution. It's not. It's not. When looking from therapy out to the world, there is other issues that come to think about. Psychotherapy sometimes looks like it's the thing to do because this is what we know to do. Most of us, some of us don't know how to do anything else, we know to do what we do. So Maslow already said that when you have a hammer in your hand, you look around, everything looks like a nail. That's so true. So we look at psychotherapists even when we are out of office, and we have to get rid of this habit because we are not. We need a setting, we need a definition, we need an agreement that we are therapists. Can't practice it in the corridor. But sometimes we feel like it, and we feel omnipotent. So we can cure it all. We can't. But we are trained to do what we do, and we want to do it. So sometimes we respond as citizens, and it's powerful, things that we cannot do in the clinic. I can do things that I cannot do in the classroom with my students. I can do things that I can't do with my intervised people. But sometimes, when I go to professional places, I can do things like here that have added value. Because I'm not just talking as David, I'm talking as David Senesh, I'm talking as a professional. And when I'm in certain organizations like the ones mentioned that deal with special populations, I can work as David and I can work as a psychologist and I can put all the power that I have in play. I don't shy away from power. I don't abuse the power, but the power that I have and I don't use it, it's a waste. And I know for sure that I have more power as a professional than going on the street in the demonstration. And quite frankly, I'm using it. I'm using it wherever I can. And I have different opportunities to do so, due to my history, to my family history, to my profession, in the radio, TV, or here, I do it. But I don't do anything that is illegal or unethical. I try not to. So I want to say that we can use psychotherapy as an appropriate instrument, but we can sometimes overuse it, underuse it, or abuse it. And I will not go into details. I have 3 examples where it happened, but I see I'm kind of running out of time, so I'll jump over to something. There are dialectics, there are tensions. It was discussed yesterday between different tendencies of the mind, what to do. And it's good there is tension and conflict. We grow out of conflict. Do we mentalize the world? We talk about discourse, interpersonal, intrapersonal, or do we extend ourselves beyond the clinic? Do we find ourselves refuge in the clinic because we are among like people? Or do we dare go out where there are other forces? And the big question is, do we do or are we with? Do we do something in the world or are we the people that are in the world like us? And the question can be summed up like this. Do we first feed the hungry client who walks into my clinic? Or do we keep him hungry, not too much, so that we can mentalize and talk about hunger and how you overcome hunger by feeding yourself? Okay? This is a major question. It's a very, very uncomfortable one. Because practically what we do and my wife knows it too well, I will go to the kitchen, I'll prepare something and bring to the child, because I cannot work with a hungry child. But theoretically, maybe I'm not doing therapy, I'm doing something else that is more important than therapy, but it may even block or hinder therapy. So do we serve, protect, and satisfy our clients' needs up to the secondary gains that they want? Compensation, all kinds of goods, all kinds of rights, monetary, things that are legitimate. So do we serve them, or do we help them get those things by themselves? So there are ways of acting in and acting out of therapy. Whenever we find ourselves sometimes beyond ourselves, it might be a situation not that the client is acting out or acting in, taking things from the inside in or from the setting outside to the world, but sometimes we do that. And we have to be careful not to cross the boundaries, because we can be working as good and faithful citizens, but then at that time we cease to be reliable professionals. And people will look at us and say, wow, he extrapolated his skills. But at the same time, and this will take you to a different journey now, be with me. If you feel confident enough, I think crossing the lines is a must. In research, the question, if we cross the lines, we empathize with our subjects, do we lose objectivity? We gain subjectivity, but we lose objectivity. It's not good in research, okay? Question mark. In psychotherapy, if we consciously or unconsciously motivated too much to save, not to help, to save our client, are we crossing the boundaries? Or are we obliged in extreme situations, like the ones you're dealing with, to work from our inner wound, from where it pains the most? Then we are joining our clients as wounded warriors, okay? This is a fight, and we are there. So how do we put our own trauma and painful experiences to work for us in research, in teaching like what we're doing now, and in therapy? How do we do that? So first of all, I would like to say a few things about trauma. There are so many terms now, and trauma being trivialized to the degree that everything is traumatized. I didn't catch the train, it's a trauma. It's raining, it's a trauma. I almost was late here because my watch was Israel time, trauma. It's not. So once we trivialize the concept, then when trauma comes our way, we don't respond. So let's see, there is something that I'd like to say quickly. There is a continuum of touch, from too much to too little. And we are aiming at the center. When things are getting too extreme, it doesn't help people. So, for example, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, all of these you can spread on the spectrum, the continuum of touch from too much to too little. When it's combined and it's in the middle, it's everyday things. Sometimes we misbehave. Okay? We misbehave as parents, as people, that's okay. But when we abuse, we are at the extremes. Then there is relational trauma. In complex PTSD, we have relational trauma. That is, the trauma happened not because of a natural cause or disease or accident. These are terrible things, but they are impersonal. When it is between people, it's relational trauma. It has a different sense. And the problem is that the consequences that it impacts the relationships in the post-trauma era. So we're talking about complex PTSD, we're talking about developmental trauma. Something that happens at the age 3 is not like something that happened at the age 18 or age 25. Each trauma on the developmental spectrum has a different taste to it and a different resilience basis to help the individual cope with what's coming his way. There is a betrayal trauma among people, that I expect people to guard me, to be good to me, to be caring like parents, and they are the ones who abuse me. That is why when therapists abuse their clients, it's the worst case scenario, because they come after they've been abused, they're coming to a safe shore where there is a therapist, and the therapist is doing just the same. That is worst of all possibilities. So this is betrayal trauma, okay? But in essence, anything I do to a fellow person is a betrayal, because I'm not supposed to do it. If I hit a person and I curse a person, I'm not supposed to do it. It's a betrayal of my humanity. And then there is moral injuries, which is a new subject that comes to the fore now. People are talking about. Not so much, but it's catching up. Moral injuries can happen in two ways. One, by committing them. I commit harm to other person, then other than the psychological harm, there is injustice here, injustice. And I also morally corrupt myself and him at the same time by the act. The act corrupts us both. An abusive parent is corrupting himself or herself and the child at the same time. This is as acts of commission, things I do. And then there are the things that by omission, these are the things I'm expected to do as a human being, as an adult, responsible person, a therapist, a parent, a teacher, and I don't do them. Then it's as bad. It's as bad. And then there is also a situation when there is something that you know is happening, you see that it happens, you observe it, and as a participant observer, because there is no observer, there's always a participant observer, and you don't take responsibility. And all of these things, by omission and by commission, by observation and by not doing, all are major issues sometimes of moral injury that have very similar consequences clinically, like PTSD. I know this hasn't got the DSM type of formalization, but it will. I can see that it will. So when I advocate to sometimes, in extreme cases, to transcend and cross the boundaries, do it with care and supervision and support, do it. Because if you are working with a client who is a refugee, a criminalized a victim, if you are not moved inside deeply, and there are some people say if you are not changed, you as a person, not as a professional, as a person from the experience, then therapy is not in the working. So you have to be deeply moved. So you have to cross the lines. And sometimes you have to put your own pool of experiences to work, not explicitly. I'm not telling my life story to the client because this is not the focus. The focus is his life story. His story, her story. But I know that subconsciously and unconsciously it's in the play. So I address it at times, and even without saying the exact words. I don't mention a war, I don't mention prisoners of war and such. But an abused child in a family knows that I'm on his side. I had an abused wife, a spousal abuse case, very extreme, and she chose me, and she told me afterwards, I chose you because you were in my condition. I said, how come? And she said, because I wasn't divorced, and I didn't go through this experience. And she said, no, you went through another experience, but because you went through that experience, I trusted that you will understand me. Okay? So even without talking about it, and before the Google time, that she could Google me and find it out, she felt something that was in the working. So what is the journey that I'm going to share with you? First of all, we can take this saying about the interfacing of justice, criminal justice, and psychotherapy. And we say when another person makes you suffer, it is because he suffers deeply within himself or herself, and his or her suffering is spilling over. He does not need punishment, he needs help. A nice interfacing of the two. We do not do things to people. We do not neglect them. We do not punish them. We do things, and we don't do things for people. We don't do it instead of them. But we do things with people. We try to restore their ability, we try to restore the ability of the community to be pre-trauma state. So I'm talking a little bit about a field that I was thrown into by accident. And I'll tell it very briefly in 5 minutes. I'll take you through 3 continents, okay? I had a case of a child abuse. This time, the child abused another child sexually. Those were the allegations. I was accepting the client to work with, and then the entire community that was very rich and affluent community was after that child and after the family and lawyers and police and everything was after this little child that I didn't know if he abused the other child or not. He was my client. I was about to work with him and I had tremendous pressure on me to give information to social services illegally. And I myself felt like I had to run away. And I couldn't protect him, and I couldn't protect myself. And then after 1 month, the entire family, all of a sudden, emigrated from Israel. I think they were refugees, in my mind. I lost them, and I lost my case, and I lost myself in this, and I felt very miserable for the child that I didn't even have a chance to start working. So I looked at one of the books, and all of a sudden I came across restorative practices in Canada, and I studied for 10 years in Canada. I never came across, I didn't know there are First Nations, didn't come across. Why should I know? Who will tell me about it? At the university, on the streets, in the Jewish community, nobody heard about it. So I got scholarships, and I went twice to do research on restorative justice, where indigenous people, the way they do therapy in their tribes. Okay, so I went to learn from them. So from a case of Western psychotherapy in northern Tel Aviv, I found myself in the Indian reserves talking with people, shamans and leaders of tribes to understand how do they do it. And they have different way, and that's called restorative justice. This is a lecture on its own. I know that here in Europe, in Hungary, maybe in Germany, in Romania, in southern Israel, there are attempts to apply this outside of court, because the court, the legal intervention in the tribes is very harmful. So when they want to do it their way, and if we adapt their way into ours, we can benefit. So I tried to take it to dialogue groups with Palestinians. It's very immature, but this is something to elaborate your mind. So I went as far as the Western Canada, and I found that they were talking not about psychotherapy, they were talking about healing. Healing. They didn't shy away from this word, healing. That is physical, emotional, mental, okay, one safe ground, but then they added spiritual. And these 4 elements are within the community. If the community is not holding those, something bad will happen. One person will abuse another. And then they activate the restorative process in the tribe. So, having learned this, I felt very safe because I'm a good-hearted person. I'm coming as a psychologist, as a researcher. I'm a neutral. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not the bad Canadian white man that came over and took your lands and spirit. And I presented myself like this. And then they taught me one sentence. They said, in our history, there were 2 things that happened that were bad. First came the priest. Second came the social worker. Second came the social worker. I was really shocked. Think about it. The way of acculturation and neo-colonialism in a cultural sense that the white person did on the Aboriginal people was through these 2 vehicles. One was the religion, the spiritual, and the other one was the mental, social work. And I'm maybe in both. It doesn't help me that I'm an outsider, foreigner, and a good-hearted researcher. They looked at me from that position. I had to understand and accept it fully. So I didn't. And I went to all kinds of rituals, and I tried to purify myself. Didn't help. And then one morning I went to, you see the canoe here, this canoe, not this particular one, that was people from children, delinquent kids, were walking on canoe like this to create an artwork that is a canoe that will bring them healing in their tribe. And this canoe was about to be launched on Vancouver Island that very morning, and I was invited by the faculty. And I went there on shore, and I was just about to embark on the sailing to the sources of wisdom and of healing. I was looking forward. This is how it looked. Few people go a little bit. It's like ceremonial. It's not really like going a little bit, coming ashore, taking another group, and I was like with my foot up in the air going in. The master of ceremony stopped me and said, "You are not from here?" Well, it wasn't hard to see. And I said, "No, where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Israel." He said, I have to ask you a very difficult question. Have you ever participated in a war? And I said, "Yes, but that was a long time ago. I was 19. He said, "No, you are contaminated. You radiate bad things, bad energies. And you cannot go on this ceremony." And I said, "Okay, but you purified me. They did all kinds of things that I took part." He said, "That's not enough." And then he said the sentence of my life, not of his life, of my life. He said, "You cannot be purified outside of your own tribe." Now, think about it. When you purify traumatized refugees, can you do that? Can I be purified on the coast, the shores of the Pacific? And then I pleaded, because that was my one chance to do it. And I said, "Listen, I will never be purified in my own society because I'm busy preparing. We are not in a post-traumatic situation, we are in a pre-traumatic situation because we are always between traumas. So there is no time for anybody to be purified. It's a one long stretch of conflict." And he said, "So sorry for you. You have to stay here." And this story really shook me. And from that time, whenever I'm back home in Israel, I'm at home but not at home, I'm not looking to be purified. And I'm not going to purify my tribe. But I know this is the situation. And this is where I am. And from there, that positioning, inner positioning, I have to work. And I took this to my class, and with this I will end. I was teaching twice in New York in a seminary for rabbinical counselors. These are people that are spiritual leaders in their communities and also psychotherapists for special cases, really extreme cases in community. They come in and they help. It's like pastoral counseling. It's really a high level of counseling. And I was the teacher on trauma. And after 3-4 months there, and we get very small class, so you become personal. And I told them this story. And those were all Jewish students that look highly on Israel. They do. I don't. They do. And I told them very squarely, I do not have a tribe, not in Germany, not in Hungary. I'm a Hungarian citizen, but this is not my tribe. Not in Germany, not in Canada, where I spend my time, not in New York for sure, and not in Israel. So what do you tell a refugee from all those? I'm not a refugee, but I'm more refugees from those places because of my traumatic journey. And there was quiet, and people are struggling. They are the people who now I called to help me. And then there was one student, and I really appreciate it because she's a student and I'm her faculty, and she said, "You know what, David? In 3 weeks or a month, I'm going to be ordinated to become a rabbi. And you know what? I'll be your rabbi, and my community will be yours." And in Hebrew, there is an expression in Judaism that rabbis do not find their disciples. a person makes himself a rabbi. He finds a rabbi that will fit him. And she knew this expression because she knew better about Judaism than me. And I told her, you know what, Shireen? I chose you right now. I'm your teacher, and you're my rabbi. And you will be my community. And I always keep her as my community, even though we don't meet so often because she's in the States and she has her own community. But in spirit, I know that I have a community. And I think I have a little bit of a community here with you guys. So I want to see if there is another slide here. Okay. Look at this, a very innocent picture that arrived yesterday. And what do you see here? You always see what's in the fore. And you always look at the person in the picture. And when we're doing phototherapy, I know some people, their expertise in phototherapy, they know how to look at things and the relationship between things and see things that we even don't see. This picture arrived yesterday from my son at our apartment where they found refuge from the missiles, and this is my grandson playing. So it took me some, I looked and looked at the picture, and then I saw something else. Anybody see something there? You see, you do, okay. A suitcase, and a big one. This is my son's suitcase. They moved in to apartment to find a secure place. And this is a mini, not compared to what you work with, but mini refugee at home, at my home in Israel at this time, far away from historical dramas that happened here and there and to the people that you're working with. But this is it. This is the essence. And as a therapist, I carry this with me. So nobody's on safe ground, but wherever we are with our clients, this is the safe ground, not elsewhere. I want to thank you very much for giving me this safe ground today.